In a move that has sent shockwaves across Zambia and beyond, a court has ruled that the body of former President Edgar Lungu must be handed over immediately to President Hakainde Hichilema's administration. Why did the court make such a controversial decision? What does this mean for the Lungu family? And why are reactions pouring in from around the world, from Lusaka to London and Washington to Johannesburg? Stay with us, because the truth behind this ruling is far more dramatic than anyone expected. The Zambian court has delivered a shocking verdict, ordering that former President Edgar Lungu's body be handed over to President Hakainde Hichilema's government for immediate action. This decision has triggered massive political debate, international attention, and emotional responses from both supporters and critics. In this video, we uncover why the court made this historic ruling, the political and legal implications for Zambia, how the Lungu family is responding, global reactions from the US, UK, South Africa, and beyond. This story is developing and the world is watching. On August 7, 2025, Zambia's Constitutional Court delivered a landmark ruling declaring former President Edgar Lungu ineligible to contest the 2026 presidential election. The court determined that Lungu, who served as president from 2015 to 2021, had exhausted the constitutional two-term limit for the presidency, as stipulated under Article 106 of the Zambian Constitution. This decision has significant implications for Zambia's political landscape, as Lungu, a prominent figure in the Patriotic Front (PF) party, was widely expected to challenge President Hakainde Hichilema of the United Party for National Development (UPND) in the upcoming election. The ruling stemmed from a petition filed by activist Michelo Kazambi, who sought clarification on Lungu's eligibility following his public announcement in May 2025 that he intended to run again. The court's decision has sparked widespread debate, with supporters of Lungu decrying it as politically motivated, while Hichilema's allies view it as a victory for constitutional integrity. The announcement has dominated Zambian media and social platforms, with posts on X reflecting polarized sentiments, ranging from celebrations of the rule of law to accusations of judicial overreach. This ruling is a pivotal moment in Zambia's democratic journey, as it reinforces term limits, but also raises questions about judicial independence and political maneuvering ahead of the 2026 election. The decision has also drawn attention to the broader rivalry between Lungu and Hichilema, which has shaped Zambian politics for over a decade. Court decision explained. The Constitutional Court's ruling hinges on the interpretation of Article 106 of the Zambian Constitution, which limits a president to two terms, whether consecutive or non-consecutive. The court's reasoning can be broken down as follows. Lungu's presidential terms. Edgar Lungu first assumed the presidency on January 25, 2015, following the death of President Michael Sata. He completed Sata's term, which ran until September 2016. This period was contentious, as some argued it should not count as a full term since Lungu was finishing Sata's mandate. Lungu then won the 2016 presidential election and served a full 5-year term from September 2016 to August 2021, when he lost to Hichilema. The court ruled that Lungu's first term, 2015 to 2016, counts as a full term under the Constitution, as he served more than 3 years of Sata's remaining term. Combined with his 2016 to 2021 term, this constitutes 2 terms, rendering him ineligible for 2026. Legal arguments. Lungu's legal team argued that his first term should not count, citing a 2018 Constitutional Court ruling that allowed him to run in 2021. They contended that the partial term was not equivalent to a full elected term, and that the Constitution's amendments in 2016 reset the term count. The petitioner, Michelo Kazambi, and the state's legal team countered that the Constitution is clear. Any period exceeding 3 years counts as a full term. They emphasized that allowing Lungu to run again would undermine the spirit of term limits designed to prevent prolonged rule. Court's rationale. The unanimous decision by the Constitutional Court, led by President Margaret Munalila, reaffirmed that Lungu's service from 2015 to 2021 exhausted his eligibility. The court rejected the argument that the 2016 constitutional amendments created a new framework, stating that the 2-term limit is absolute. The court also addressed Lungu's 2021 candidacy, noting that the earlier ruling permitting it was based on a transitional provision in the 2016 amendments, which no longer applies. Implications. The ruling sets a precedent for strict enforcement of term limits, potentially deterring future attempts to extend presidential tenures. It has raised concerns about judicial independence, with Lungu supporters alleging that the court was influenced by Hichilema's administration. Critics point to the appointment of judges perceived as UPND aligned, though no concrete evidence of bias has been substantiated. The decision eliminates Lungu as a direct contender in 2026, forcing the PF to seek a new candidate, which could fragment the opposition. The court's ruling has been praised for upholding constitutional principles, but criticized for potentially destabilizing the political environment, as Lungu supporters vow to challenge the decision through protests and legal appeals. Political background. Lungu versus Hichilema. The rivalry between Edgar Lungu and Hakainde Hichilema is a defining feature of Zambia's recent political history, rooted in ideological differences, personal animosity, and competing visions for the country. To understand the context of the court ruling, we must examine their backgrounds, political political trajectories and the broader dynamics of Zambian politics. Edgar Lungu's rise and presidency. Edgar Lungu, a lawyer by training, emerged as a key figure in the Patriotic Front (PF), founded by Michael Sata. After Sata's death in 2014, Lungu won a tightly contested party leadership race and became president in 2015. His presidency, 2015 to 2021, was marked by economic challenges, including rising debt, currency depreciation, and unemployment. Lungu's administration was criticized for authoritarian tendencies, including restrictions on media and opposition activities. Notable incidents include the 2016 arrest of Hichilema for treason after a traffic altercation and the crackdown on dissent during the 2016 election. Despite these controversies, Lungu maintained a loyal base, particularly in urban and eastern regions, due to his populist policies and infrastructure projects. His defeat in 2021 to Hichilema was narrow, with 48.3% of the vote compared to Hichilema's 50.7%. Hakainde Hichilema's ascendancy. Hakainde Hichilema, a businessman and economist, led the UPND since 2006, contesting 5 presidential elections before winning in 2021. His platform emphasized economic reform, anti-corruption, and restoring democratic norms. Hichilema's presidency has focused on stabilizing Zambia's economy, securing an IMF bailout, and restructuring $13 billion in external debt. However, his administration faces criticism for failing to deliver on job creation and for alleged targeting of opposition figures, including Lungu. Hichilema's supporters view him as a reformer correcting the excesses of Lungu's era, while detractors, particularly PF supporters, accuse him of consolidating power and undermining democratic institutions. The rivalry. The Lungu-Hichilema rivalry began in the mid-2000s, when Hichilema emerged as a formidable opposition leader against the PF. Their competition intensified during the 2016 election, marred by violence and allegations of rigging, and culminated in Hichilema's 2017 arrest. Since 2021, Lungu has remained a vocal critic of Hichilema, accusing him of economic mismanagement and authoritarianism. Incidents like the 2023 police raid on Lungu's home, cited in an ex-post by Daddy Hope, have fueled perceptions of political vendettas. The Constitutional Court ruling is seen by some as the latest chapter in this rivalry, with Lungu's exclusion potentially weakening the PF's challenge to Hichilema's re-election bid. Broader political context. Zambia's political landscape is polarized between the PF's populist, pro-poor rhetoric and the UPND's market-oriented, reformist agenda. Regional and ethnic dynamics also play a role, with Lungu drawing support from Bemba-speaking regions and Hichilema from southern and western provinces. The court ruling comes amid broader debates about term limits in Africa, as seen in posts about Cameroon and Zambia, where leaders like Paul Biya and Hichilema have faced scrutiny over constitutional changes. This rivalry has shaped Zambia's democratic trajectory, with the court's decision likely to intensify tensions as the 2026 election approaches. Family response and legal battle. The Constitutional Court's ruling has elicited strong reactions from Edgar Lungu's family and the Patriotic Front, who are pursuing legal and public strategies to challenge the decision. Family response. Lungu's wife, Esther Lungu, issued a public statement on August 8, 2025, calling the ruling a travesty of justice and accusing the judiciary of bowing to political pressure from Hichilema's administration. She vowed that the family would stand by Edgar and fight for his rights. Lungu's daughter, Tassila Lungu, a former MP, took to X to rally supporters, stating, "The people's choice cannot be silenced by a biased court. We will not give up." Her posts garnered significant engagement, reflecting the PF's grassroots support. The family's response has been emotional and defiant, framing Lungu as a victim of political persecution. They have called for peaceful protests and urged Zambians to defend democracy. Legal battle. The PF's legal team, led by prominent lawyer John Sangwa, announced plans to appeal the ruling, though the Constitutional Court's decisions are final under Zambian law. Sangwa argued that the court misinterpreted the 2016 amendments and ignored precedent from Lungu's 2021 candidacy. The PF is also exploring alternative legal avenues, including filing a case with the African Court on Human and People's Rights, claiming that Lungu's political rights have been violated. Parallel to the legal efforts, the PF has mobilized supporters for rallies in Lusaka and other strongholds, raising concerns about potential unrest. Police have warned against unsanctioned protests, citing public safety. Challenges ahead. The legal battle faces significant hurdles, as the Constitutional Court's authority is supreme in constitutional matters. Any appeal to regional courts is likely to be symbolic, with limited practical impact. The family's public campaign risks escalating tensions, especially given Zambia's history of election-related violence in 2016 and 2021. The government has deployed additional security in PF strongholds to prevent clashes. The family's response reflects a broader strategy to keep Lungu relevant in Zambian politics, even if he cannot run in 2026. Their efforts may influence the PF's choice of a new candidate and shape public sentiment. Global reactions. US, UK, and Africa. The Constitutional Court's ruling has drawn attention from international actors, reflecting Zambia's importance as a democratic and economic partner in Southern Africa. Reactions Reactions vary, with some praising the decision as a democratic milestone and others expressing concern about political stability. United States. The U.S. Embassy in Lusaka issued a statement on August 8, 2025, commending Zambia for upholding constitutional principles and the rule of law. The statement emphasized the importance of term limits for democratic governance. However, some U.S. analysts, cited in posts on X, cautioned that the ruling could polarize Zambia and undermine stability, especially if protests escalate. The U.S. has a vested interest in Zambia's stability due to its role in regional security and debt restructuring negotiations with Western creditors. United Kingdom. The UK's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office welcomed the ruling, noting that respect for constitutional limits strengthens Zambia's democratic credentials. The UK, a major donor to Zambia, has supported judicial reforms and anti-corruption initiatives under Hichilema. British media outlets, such as the BBC, framed the decision within the context of Africa's struggles with term limits, citing Cameroon's Paul Biya as a counterexample. African reactions. The Southern African Development Community, SADC, has remained neutral, with its chair, Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa, avoiding direct comment. An ex-post by Dr. Fred Membe criticized Hichilema's leadership at the SADC summit, suggesting regional leaders are wary of Zambia's internal politics. South Africa's African National Congress, ANC, expressed support for the ruling, aligning with its stance on constitutionalism. However, opposition parties in South Africa, like the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, sympathized with Lungu, drawing parallels to their own critiques of judicial overreach. The African Union, AU, issued a cautious statement urging all parties to respect the court's decision and maintain peace. The AU's position reflects its broader push for democratic norms, though it avoids taking sides in domestic disputes. Broader context. The ruling aligns with global trends of enforcing term limits, as seen in recent court decisions in Kenya and Malawi. However, it contrasts with countries like Uganda, where President Yoweri Museveni has extended his rule, prompting criticism of democratic backsliding. International reactions are shaped by Zambia's economic ties, particularly its copper exports and debt restructuring. Western nations see Hichilema as a reliable partner, which may influence their support for the ruling. Global responses highlight the delicate balance between supporting democratic principles and ensuring political stability in Zambia. What happens next for Zambia? The court's ruling sets the stage for a transformative period in Zambian politics, with implications for the 2026 election, governance, and social cohesion. Key developments to watch include political realignment. The PF must now select a new presidential candidate, potentially leading to internal divisions. Prominent figures like Given Labinda or Miles Sampa may emerge, but none command Lungu's populist appeal. Hichilema's UPND is likely to capitalize on the ruling to consolidate power, though it must address economic grievances such as high living costs to maintain voter support. Smaller opposition parties like Fred Membe's Socialist Party may gain traction if the PF falters. Potential for unrest. Lungu's supporters have called for protests, raising concerns about violence. The government's response, including police actions, will be critical in maintaining stability. Historical incidents, such as the 2023 raid on Lungu's home, suggest a risk of heavy-handed tactics which could inflame tensions. Economic and governance challenges. Hichilema's administration faces pressure to deliver on economic promises, including job creation and debt management. Failure to do so could fuel discontent, regardless of Lungu's exclusion. The ruling strengthens Hichilema's position, but may deepen perceptions of political bias, undermining trust in institutions. Regional and international dynamics. Zambia's role in SADC and its economic partnerships will be closely watched. The ruling may bolster Hichilema's international credibility, but risks alienating regional allies sympathetic to Lungu. The AU and Western donors will likely monitor the situation to ensure free and fair elections in 2026. The next 12 months will be critical for Zambia to navigate these challenges and maintain its reputation as a stable democracy in Africa. Final thoughts and analysis. The Constitutional Court's ruling on Edgar Lungu's ineligibility is a defining moment for Zambia, reinforcing constitutional limits but exposing deep political fault lines. The decision reflects a commitment to democratic principles, particularly the enforcement of term limits, which is rare in a region where leaders often cling to power. However, it also risks exacerbating polarization, as Lungu supporters view it as a targeted attack by Hichilema's administration. Critically, the ruling raises questions about judicial independence. While the legal basis appears sound, the perception of bias, fueled by the appointment of judges seen as UPND-aligned, could erode public trust. Zambia's history of peaceful democratic transitions, as seen in 2021, is a strength, but the government must avoid actions that could provoke unrest, such as excessive crackdowns on protests. Economically, Hichilema faces a delicate balancing act. The IMF bailout and debt restructuring have stabilized Zambia's finances, but tangible benefits for ordinary citizens remain elusive. The absence of Lungu as a contender may weaken the opposition, but it also places greater scrutiny on Hichilema's performance. Globally, the ruling aligns Zambia with democratic norms, but highlights the fragility of political stability in Africa. The contrast with leaders like Museveni and Biya underscores Zambia's potential as a model, provided it navigates the coming months with restraint and inclusivity. In conclusion, the court's decision is a victory for constitutionalism, but a challenge for Zambia's democratic resilience. The path to 2026 will test Hichilema's leadership, the PF's adaptability, and the country's commitment to unity over division.